It's 2,000 men going at it, and they're all Americans. Every single one of them except Ferguson. That's the kind of war that's going on in the South. They're all American colonials. And they surround Ferguson, and these guys are the rifles. This is one of the few battles where they were truly moving from tree to tree and bush to bush, and they decimate Ferguson, and they shoot him off his horse. He leads one final attempt with a bayonet charge. They say he has 7 musket balls in his body. They shoot him off his horse. But he's the only British officer up there. 4 months later, Daniel Morgan is moving through the South. Cornwallis sends Tarleton to deal with him. You got Bannister Tarleton on your tail, you in a heap of trouble. He has been extremely effective. Battle after battle. Twice earlier in the war, William Washington has to jump off of his horse. And one time he had to jump off his horse and move through a swamp to get away from Tarleton's legion. He wants Tarleton's head on a stick. He is with Morgan. That's the famous battle of Cowpen, South Carolina. What happens is Morgan knows how to use militia. This is the famous battle that the military still talks about to this day. He's got militia, he's got the Continental Line. This is the one where he lines them up in 3 lines. Way out front, cowpens. This is Hannah's cowpens. It was actually a natural pasture where they put cattle. He decides to meet Tarleton there. Up front is his sharpshooters, riflemen. About 100 yards back, he's got 1,000 militia that have come in. He sent the word. While he's being chased, he sends the word out. Bring the militia in. Call up the militia. We're in danger. The militia show up. South Carolina, North Carolina, some Georgia boys show up under Pickens. General Pickens is a famous militia leader in the South. He shows up at Cowpens with 1,000 militia. He's very fortunate, about 600 Continentals. So up front, the rifles, 100 yards back, 1,000 militia, and all night long he moves from campfire to campfire, saying, boys, give me 2 shots. Some say he said, give me 3 shots and you're free. Give me 2 shots and run. They're going to run anyway. Give me 2 shots and run, and you're free. That's what they say he does. So, and then behind that, just a little up on a knoll, is his Continental Line, Delaware, Maryland line. So when Tarleton takes the field, he does exactly what Morgan thought he was going to do, what he always does. He immediately lines up and charges downfield. When he starts lining up, he first is taken by rifle fire. And they start shooting the officers. If they're wearing gold, shoot them. And that's what they start doing. So he lines them up, they charge downfield, his cavalry they're flanking both sides, they're charging down the field, and there's 1,000 militia. And they give a very serious volley. Takes out 1/3 of the force right there, drops them. One part of them actually gives, about 50 you actually get 2 shots off. But the British are the best troops in the world. They immediately reform and charge the militia, and they run. Just like this they were supposed to. They didn't quite get 2 shots off. And they run. And they run behind the Continental Line, and his troops actually charge his cavalry. He sends the cavalry around the lines, and they start cutting up Pickett's men, the militia. William Washington charges off of a hill. They're up there with Morgan. He charges his whole cavalry force off the hill to drive the British off. Now the British think they're winning. They're moving up very fast. The Highlanders, he's got a group of Highlanders force in reserve and about 200 loyalists, dragoons. They move up, and there's the Continental Line. They thought they were winning this thing. These boys have been marching all night. They think they're about to win a battle, and now here is the Maryland and Delaware line, and they are known to fight. So the heavy fight starts ensuing. They're fighting it out, and this is what happens. This is the famous maneuver. There's a miscommunication on the Continental Line, and the far right begins to turn and move in order to the rear. The whole Continental Line thinks that they are retreating. They break and start moving to the rear. The British think that they're actually retreating. That's really not the case, and they load their weapons on the fly as they're moving back. Morgan rides off the hill, relines them up. The British are less than 30 yards away. They say it can be as much as 10 yards away. The whole Continental Line turns and fires a volley almost right into their faces. It was such a devastating blast, it dropped so many of the British that they stopped in their tracks. Many of them throw down their weapons, and their line turns and breaks and runs. Pickens comes in, they surround the British. William Washington forces come in, and it's a double envelopment, and they completely rout Tarleton's army. They take over 600 prisoners. Over 200 British are dead on the field, many more are wounded. Tarleton tries to regain his artillery, he had a couple of cannons, and he calls his dragoons forward. William Washington meets them. They have a little sword play. The thing is, William Washington's sword is broke. They say he is saved by his servant, who rides up and shoots one of the British officers off his horse. But Tarleton breaks and runs and rejoins Cornwallis. But he's lost his whole, Cornwallis's light force is lost at Cowpens. Cornwallis says it nearly broke his heart. They would move from there. They would have to get all those prisoners up into North Carolina, and that's what they would do with Cornwallis in close pursuit. They get up, they meet up with Nathaniel Greene, and it becomes what is called the race for the Dan River in Virginia, and Greene would win it. He would actually get his force up. And then it was fighting back and forth. The last major battle is Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina. Nathaniel Greene will meet Cornwallis. Cornwallis's army now has been fighting through South Carolina. They are about as bad shape as our forces have been throughout this thing. And Nathaniel Greene has a larger force, but most of them are militia. And he would stand and he would have the same three lines. Riflemen up front.